Consider the greatest illusion of human interaction. We actually believe what people say. Every single day, men walk into boardrooms, relationships, and negotiations entirely blind, trusting the words flowing from the mouths of strangers. This is a fatal vulnerability. People are masters of linguistic camouflage. They will tell you exactly what you want to hear while plotting the exact opposite. But there is a hidden language, a raw, biological broadcast of truth that cannot be faked, hidden, or turned off. The top 1% of men, those who operate with elite psychological dominance, do not listen to words. They read the silent data. They decode the subconscious. Today, we are tearing away the veil. We are applying the unyielding principles of Stoicism to decode human behavior before a single syllable is uttered. This is not for the fragile. This is the closed-door knowledge of absolute emotional control and mental superiority. The truth is screaming at you. Are you finally ready to open your eyes? The modern man faces an unprecedented crisis of deception. We live in an era of manufactured personas, where societal conditioning has taught people how to perfectly curate their external image. Men are bombarded with fake confidence, manipulative tactics, and emotional traps at every turn. You are navigating a minefield blindfolded if you rely solely on what people tell you. The problem is not that people lie. The problem is that average men lack the psychological defense mechanisms to see through the illusion. You do not need to memorize ancient quotes or pretend to be a philosopher from antiquity to solve this. You need the pragmatic, ruthless application of modern Stoicism. The core of this philosophy is separating what you can control from what you cannot. You cannot control the masks people wear, but you have absolute control over your ability to observe without emotion. When you strip away your own desperate need for approval, your anxiety, and your emotional reactions, your vision becomes terrifyingly clear. You transition from a participant in their drama to the architect of your own reality. It is time to establish the absolute firmness of character required to see the world exactly as it is. Words are the ultimate camouflage. Most men believe that to understand someone, you merely have to listen to what they say. This is the first and most fatal mistake of the week. The average person uses language not to reveal their true intentions, but to conceal them. They build a fortress of sentences to hide their insecurities, their fears, and their hidden agendas. But the man who understands the modern Stoic mindset knows better. He does not listen to the noise, he observes the silence. While others are distracted by the charm of a well-crafted sentence, the elite observer is watching the subtle shifts in posture, the slight hesitation before a response, the involuntary tightening of the jaw. These are the true indicators of character. They are the raw, unfiltered data of the human psyche. When you detach emotionally from the conversation, you stop being a participant in their play and become the director of the scene. You step outside the emotional matrix. This is not about becoming a cynic, it is about becoming awake. You are stripping away the illusion and demanding the truth through sheer observation. This level of perception requires a discipline that 99% of men simply do not possess. They are too eager to be liked, too desperate to be heard. But you are different. You wait. You watch. You conquer. To read another human being, your own mind must first become a completely still surface. Think of a mirror reflecting a room. If the mirror is shaking, the image is distorted. If your emotions are turbulent, if you are anxious, angry, or desperate for approval, You will never see the person standing in front of you. You will only see a projection of your own insecurities. This is why modern Stoicism is the ultimate foundation for psychological dominance. The elite man practices radical emotional control. He does not react. He absorbs. When a person walks into the room, the average man is immediately thinking about how he is perceived. He is adjusting his tie, forcing a smile, leaking nervous energy. The superior observer does none of this. He anchors himself in the present moment. He becomes a black hole of observation, pulling in data without emitting any unnecessary signals. By remaining completely neutral, you force the other person to fill the void. Human nature abhors an emotional vacuum. When you do not give them the reaction they expect, their mask begins to slip. They will talk too much. They will over-explain. They will fidget. Your stillness becomes the very tool that dismantles their facade. True power is not about making the loudest noise. It is about possessing the quietest mind. When your internal world is absolute iron, the external world reveals all its secrets. Before you can detect a lie, you must first understand their personal truth. In the realm of behavioral analysis, this is known as establishing a baseline. Every individual has a natural rhythm of existing. How they stand when they are relaxed, how fast they speak when they are comfortable, where their eyes go when they are simply thinking. The amateur tries to spot deception immediately, looking for dramatic signs like sweating or stammering. The master observer knows that deception is found in the deviation from the norm. You must spend the first few moments of any interaction doing nothing but gathering baseline data. Ask simple, non-threatening questions. Watch their default state. Observe the cadence of their breath and the resting tension in their facial muscles. Once you have mapped their standard operating procedure, you hold the key to their mind. Now, when you introduce a stressful topic or ask a pointed question, you watch for the shift. Does their blink rate suddenly double? Does their voice pitch rise half an octave? Does a hand instinctively move to cover their neck? These subtle changes are the cracks in their armor. A strong man does not need to interrogate. He merely observes the friction between what a person wants to portray and what their nervous system is actually doing. The body cannot lie consistently. Words lie smoothly, but the hands are terribly honest. The hands are connected to the brain through a massive network of nerves, and they constantly broadcast our internal state. When you want to read a man before he even opens his mouth, look at what his hands are doing. Are they hidden in his pockets? This is a subconscious attempt to conceal, a primitive desire to hide one's true intentions. Are they tightly clenched, even when the conversation is seemingly casual? That is suppressed aggression or intense anxiety leaking through the physical form. The elite strategist pays close attention to pacifying behaviors. When a person feels sudden stress, they will subconsciously try to soothe themselves. They will rub the back of their neck, stroke their arms, or adjust their watch. It is the adult version of a child seeking comfort. When you see these gestures, you know instantly that you have hit a nerve. You have discovered a vulnerability. A man of firmness of character rarely fidgets. His hands are still, purposeful, and visible. By mastering your own physical movements, you create an aura of absolute self-discipline. And by reading the frantic, uncontrolled movements of others, you map out their insecurities without them ever realizing they have been exposed. You see the invisible strings pulling their actions. Gravity and intention dictate human movement, and the most honest part of the human body is the feet. People spend so much energy controlling their facial expressions that they completely forget about their lower half. The feet point exactly where the mind wants to go. Imagine you are standing in a circle of people. A man is smiling at you, engaging in polite conversation, nodding at your every word. But his feet are pointed directly toward the exit, or towards someone else in the room. His words are telling you he is present, but his biology is screaming that he wants to escape. This is the physical manifestation of a psychological disconnect. A Stoic observer never ignores this. If you are negotiating a deal or testing a potential ally, and their lower body is angled away from you, you already know their commitment is an illusion. Furthermore, watch the stance. A wide, grounded stance projects confidence and territorial dominance. A narrow, crossed stance indicates a subconscious desire to take up less space, revealing intimidation or submission. By reading the foundation of their posture, you bypass the social pleasantries and read their primal brain. You understand their true level of comfort and their hidden desires before a single syllable is spoken. You read the foundation, not the facade. One of the most potent weapons in the arsenal of a strong man is the strategic use of silence. Average people are terrified of the void. They view silence as a failure of social interaction, an awkward gap that must be frantically filled with words, laughter, or meaningless noise. But the elite mind views silence as a spotlight. When you ask a question and receive an answer, do not immediately reply. Maintain eye contact. Remain completely still. Let the silence stretch for 3, 4, even 5 seconds. What happens next will tell you everything you need to know about the person in front of you. A secure person, someone with true self-discipline, will hold the silence with you. They are comfortable in their own skin. But a person who is hiding something, or someone riddled with insecurity, will crack under the pressure of the unspoken void. They will start talking again. They will justify their previous statement. They will backtrack, over-explain, and ultimately reveal the very thing they were trying to hide. By doing absolutely nothing, you force them to dismantle their own defenses. It is the ultimate expression of Stoic power. You are not fighting them. You are allowing their own undisciplined mind to defeat them. You use their own discomfort as a tool of revelation. Nothing exposes a man faster than his own ego. The modern world is filled with individuals who are desperate to project an image of success, wealth, or intelligence. They wear their pride like a heavy armor, but in reality, it is a glaring weakness. To read someone instantly, pay attention to how they talk about their achievements. Do they constantly steer the conversation back to themselves? Do they name drop or exaggerate their importance? This is not a sign of strength. It is a desperate cry for validation. A truly powerful man, anchored in modern principles of calmness, feels zero need to prove his worth to strangers. He is secure in his reality. When you encounter the braggart, do not compete with him. Do not try to outshine him. Instead, observe him with quiet detachment. His need to impress you gives you immediate leverage. He is handing you the manual to his psychological triggers. You now know exactly what he fears most: being insignificant. By recognizing the fragility of his ego, you predict his future behavior. You know he will compromise his morals for a compliment, and he will act irrationally if his status is threatened. The ego is the loudest speaker in the room, and the Stoic simply listens, takes notes, and uses that knowledge to navigate the situation with absolute superiority. Deception has a specific architecture, a structural flaw that the trained eye can always spot. When a person is inventing a lie, their brain must work twice as hard. They are constructing a false reality while simultaneously trying to monitor your reaction to see if you believe them. This cognitive overload inevitably causes leaks in their behavior. One of the most glaring signs is a sudden drop in physical animation. When the brain is busy fabricating details, the body freezes to conserve energy. A naturally expressive person will suddenly become rigid. Their hand gestures will stop. Their blink rate will slow down as they focus intensely on maintaining the lie. The stoic observer recognizes this unnatural stillness immediately. It is the pause of a predator trying not to be seen, or prey hoping to blend into the background. Furthermore, watch for the mismatch between emotion and words. They might say they are thrilled to see you, but the smile does not reach their eyes, and the facial muscles around the cheeks remain flat. The timing is always slightly off. The smile appears a fraction of a second too late, or vanishes too quickly. By mastering emotional control yourself, you become highly attuned to these microscopic errors in others. You see the glitch in their matrix. You witness the lie before it fully materializes. The human face is a canvas of fleeting truths. Even the most practiced liar cannot entirely control the involuntary flashes of emotion that cross their face in a fraction of a second. These are called micro-expressions, and they are the purest window into the soul. Before the conscious brain can mask the feeling, the subconscious mind fires a signal. A sudden tightening of the lips, a microscopic widening of the eyes, a subtle flare of the nostrils. These movements last for less than half a second, but to the elite observer, they are as loud as a siren. To catch them, you must possess absolute presence of mind. You cannot be distracted by your own thoughts. When you introduce a challenging idea or a sudden shift in the environment, watch their face intensely. You might see a flash of contempt when they think they are smarter than you, or a flicker of genuine fear when you touch upon a hidden truth. People will tell you who they are long before they realize they have done so. But this requires you to remain completely stoic. If you react to their micro-expression, you alert them that you are watching. You must be an invisible witness. Register the data, store it in your mind, and let them continue believing their mask is perfectly intact. Knowledge is power, but hidden knowledge is absolute dominance. Authority is rarely spoken. It is physically manifested. You can read the hierarchy of any room simply by observing posture and spatial dynamics. True firmness of character does not require physical intimidation. A strong man occupies space with relaxed confidence. His spine is straight, his shoulders are dropped, and his neck is exposed. This exposure of vital areas is a primal sign of fearlessness. He does not feel threatened, therefore he does not protect himself. In contrast, observe the man who is unsure of his position. His shoulders curve slightly inward, protecting his chest. His chin tucks down. He is physically minimizing himself to avoid conflict. Even if he speaks with a loud voice, his biology betrays his submission. When you approach someone, watch how they adjust their posture. Do they square their shoulders to meet you, signaling respect and equality? Or do they angle away, yielding the space? By understanding these primal dominance cues, you can assess a man's courage and self-belief in mere seconds. You learn to read the ancient language of the pack, a language that predates spoken words by millions of years. Cultivate your own posture of stoic strength, and watch how the world instinctively yields to your presence. The body dictates the reality of the mind. Humor is often the most sophisticated mask for hostility and insecurity. When a man cannot directly confront a problem, he will often hide his aggression behind a joke. The phrase, "I am just kidding," is frequently the cowardly retreat of a man who just revealed his true feelings, but lacks the courage to stand by them. To read people deeply, pay close attention to the target and the timing of their humor. Sarcasm is a tool of the weak. It is a passive-aggressive shield used to chip away at the confidence of others without taking responsibility for the attack. The elite man does not engage in petty sarcasm, nor does he tolerate it blindly. When someone makes a subtle jab disguised as a joke, observe their eyes. They are watching you intensely, waiting to see if the poison took effect. The Stoic response is devastatingly simple. Do not laugh. Maintain a calm, unamused expression. Look at them neutrally and ask them to explain the joke. This completely dismantles their strategy. By refusing to participate in their passive-aggressive game, you force them into the uncomfortable light of direct confrontation. They will instantly backtrack and reveal their weakness. You read their hostility, and you neutralized it with nothing more than the power of your own unyielding presence. If you want to know the true measure of a man, watch how he handles a minor inconvenience. It is easy to be charming, polite, and confident when everything is going according to plan. The mask is firmly in place. But the moment the flight is delayed, the waiter drops the drink, or the internet connection fails, the mask slips. The man lacking self-discipline will instantly react with irritation, anger, or despair. His emotional state is completely dependent on external circumstances. He is a slave to the unpredictable nature of the world. This is the opposite of Stoicism today. A strong man expects friction. He anticipates obstacles. When a minor crisis occurs, his baseline does not shift. He remains deeply grounded. If you are observing a potential business partner or an associate, engineer a slight delay or a small frustration. Watch their nervous system react. Do they blame others? Do they lose their temper over something trivial? If so, you have just learned that they will break under real pressure. Their emotional foundation is built on sand. You cannot rely on them when the true storms of life arrive. Reading a person's reaction to the uncontrollable gives you a direct window into their emotional resilience. The elite reserve their energy for real battles, while the weak exhaust themselves fighting the wind. Anger is rarely a primary emotion. In the vast majority of cases, anger is simply the bodyguard of fear. When a person feels threatened, exposed, or inadequate, their ego deploys anger to push the threat away. It is a loud, aggressive defense mechanism designed to stop you from looking too closely at their vulnerability. When a man suddenly explodes in anger over a logical question, you must train your mind to look past the shouting. The Stoic does not get pulled into the emotional vortex of someone else's rage. Instead, you ask yourself, what is this anger protecting? What weakness did I just touch? Perhaps you questioned their competence, and instead of providing evidence, they became furious. Their fury is their confession of incompetence. By maintaining your absolute calm, your emotional control acts as a mirror, reflecting their irrationality back at them. The louder they get, the quieter you become. This contrast not only highlights their loss of control, but also establishes your unquestionable dominance in the interaction. You see their anger not as a threat, but as a map. It points directly to the exact location of their deepest insecurities. While others are intimidated by the roar, you are quietly analyzing the cage. The eyes are the focal point of human connection and dominance. How a man manages eye contact reveals his entire psychological framework. The average person avoids prolonged eye contact because it feels too intimate, too confrontational. They glance, they look away, they scan the room. When they speak, they look at the ceiling or the floor. This is a broadcast of submission and uncertainty. Conversely, the forced, unblinking stare of an overly aggressive amateur is an attempt at intimidation, an overcompensation for internal weakness. The elite standard is the calm, unwavering gaze of a stoic. You look directly into the eyes of the person speaking, blinking naturally, your facial muscles relaxed. You do not break contact when the conversation gets tense. You hold your ground. If you want to read someone's confidence, hold their gaze for just a fraction of a second longer than is socially comfortable. The person who breaks eye contact first and looks downward is subconsciously acknowledging your authority. The person who looks away to the side is simply processing information. By mastering the subtle art of the gaze, you establish a silent hierarchy before a single word is exchanged. You look through the persona and directly into the core of their being. Every human interaction is a silent negotiation of territory. We project an invisible force field around our bodies, and how we manage that space speaks volumes about our internal power. A man with a strong character, grounded in modern stoicism, is comfortable taking up the space he needs. He sits fully in his chair. He does not tuck his elbows in tightly. He rests his arms openly. He owns his immediate environment. When you want to read someone's psychological state, watch what they do when their space is subtly challenged. If you lean in slightly, do they immediately pull back and shrink? That is a clear indicator of a yielding, submissive nature. Do they hold their ground without becoming defensively rigid? That shows quiet confidence. Furthermore, pay attention to the objects around them. A nervous person will create physical barriers. They will place a coffee cup, a laptop, or a bag directly between you and them. Every human interaction is a silent negotiation of territory. We project an invisible force field around our bodies, and how we manage that space speaks volumes about our internal power. A man with a strong character, grounded in modern stoicism, is comfortable taking up the space he needs. He sits fully in his chair. He does not tuck his elbows in tightly. He rests his arms openly. He owns his immediate environment. When you want to read someone's psychological state, watch what they do when their space is subtly challenged. If you lean in slightly, do they immediately pull back and shrink? That is a clear indicator of a yielding, submissive nature. Do they hold their ground without becoming defensively rigid? That shows quiet confidence. Furthermore, pay attention to the objects around them. A nervous person will create physical barriers. They will place a coffee cup, a laptop, or a bag directly between you and them. Respiration is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious mind. It is the only autonomic function we can completely control, yet most people completely ignore it. The speed and depth of a person's breath are a direct reflection of their nervous system. When a person is lying or feeling intense anxiety, their breathing shifts from the diaphragm to the upper chest. It becomes shallow and rapid. Their shoulders might slightly rise and fall with each breath. They are in a state of fight or flight. even if they are trying to smile and act normal. The elite observer tunes into this biological rhythm. Before a crucial negotiation, or when asking a high-stakes question, watch their chest. Listen to the subtle intake of air. A sudden, sharp inhalation before answering often indicates shock or the frantic construction of a lie. A long, heavy sigh is a release of massive tension, often signaling surrender or relief. The Stoic practitioner uses his own breath as an anchor, breathing deeply and slowly from the stomach. This not only maintains your own emotional control, but also subconsciously influences the room. By reading their breath, you are reading their heartbeat. You are reading the raw biological truth that no amount of smooth talking can possibly hide. If you want absolute certainty about a man's character, ignore how he treats his superiors. Everyone behaves well when they have something to gain. The ultimate test of a man is how he treats those who can do absolutely nothing for him. Observe his interactions with the waiter, the cleaner, the taxi driver. Does he speak to them with the same respect he gives a wealthy investor? Or does he become dismissive, arrogant, and demanding? A man who abuses power in small ways will absolutely abuse it in large ways. The need to diminish others to feel superior is the hallmark of a deeply insecure and weak individual. True firmness of character requires no artificial elevation. The modern Stoic treats the emperor and the peasant with the exact same level of composed respect, because his behavior is a reflection of his own internal standard, not a reaction to the status of the person in front of him. When you see a man snap his fingers at a server, you have learned everything you need to know. He lacks empathy, he lacks self-discipline, and he relies on cheap dominance displays. You mark him as unreliable and emotionally volatile. This observation alone will save you from disastrous partnerships and toxic alliances. True power is gentle with the weak and unyielding with the corrupt. In the psychological landscape, volume is often a substitute for substance. Whenever you encounter a man who is too loud, too aggressive, or too overtly masculine, you are looking at a classic case of overcompensation. He is projecting an extreme version of strength because he is terrified that you will discover his profound weakness. The man who constantly talks about his fighting skills, his wealth, or his conquests is trying to convince himself just as much as he is trying to convince you. A truly strong man, deeply rooted in emotional control, operates with a quiet gravity. He does not need to broadcast his lethality or his success. His presence speaks for itself. To read the overcompensator, look for the desperate need for validation in his eyes after he makes a bold claim. He will boast and then scan the room to see who is impressed. The elite strategy is to offer absolutely no validation. Meet his boast with a calm, unimpressed silence. Do not challenge him directly, simply let his exaggerated claims fall flat into the void. His resulting panic will be highly instructive. He will either double down and look foolish, or he will retreat. By recognizing overcompensation, you bypass the intimidating facade and see the frightened child desperately trying to wear a man's armor. The ability to read men before they speak is the ultimate superpower in the modern world. It is the exact point where Stoic wisdom meets elite psychological strategy. The one undeniable truth you must take away from this is that mastery over others begins exclusively with mastery over yourself. Until you can quiet your own mind, you will never hear the silent confessions of the world around you. Your stillness is your greatest weapon. Let the weak scream, let the insecure boast, and let the liars construct their illusions. You will remain untouched, watching, analysing, and silently conquering. Thank you for seeking the truth. If you are ready to walk the path of the elite and forge an unbreakable mind, subscribe to the channel and join the few who truly understand. I leave you with this question for the comments. What is the most obvious sign of weakness you have observed in a man trying to look strong? State your answer below and let us dissect the truth together. Once you have extracted all the necessary intelligence, you close the trap with absolute precision. You reveal that you knew the truth from the very first second. The psychological devastation this inflicts on a manipulator is total. You did not just defeat them, you outclassed them on a level they cannot even comprehend. Patience is the ultimate predator. Reading people is not a parlor trick. It is a profound responsibility. The knowledge you gather from observing the micro-expressions, the posture, the silence, and the breath must be integrated into a broader framework of Stoic philosophy. You do not gather this intelligence to gossip, to mock, or to feed your own ego. You gather it to navigate the world with lethal precision and absolute emotional stability. You use it to protect your energy from energy vampires, to identify loyal allies, and to anticipate betrayal before it ever manifests. This level of psychological mastery elevates you out of the ordinary masses. You are no longer reacting to the chaotic emotions of the people around you. You are a silent observer, sitting at the center of the storm, completely untouched by the wind. This is the true essence of resilience and mental superiority. It requires relentless practice. You must observe strangers on the street. You must analyze every conversation. You must master your own physical and emotional output until stillness becomes your default state. When you align your internal discipline with sharp external perception, you become a force of nature. You step into the top 1% of men. You see the invisible strings, and no one will ever be able to play you again. The ability to read men before they speak is the ultimate superpower in the modern world. It is the exact point where Stoic wisdom meets elite psychological strategy. The one undeniable truth you must take away from this is that mastery over others begins exclusively with mastery over yourself. Until you can quiet your own mind, you will never hear the silent confessions of the world around you. Your stillness is your greatest weapon. Let the weak scream, let the insecure boast, and let the liars construct their illusions. You will remain untouched, watching, analysing, and silently conquering. Thank you for seeking the truth. If you are ready to walk the path of the elite and forge an unbreakable mind, subscribe to the channel and join the few who truly understand. I leave you with this question for the comments. What is the most obvious sign of weakness you have observed in a man trying to look strong? State your answer below and let us dissect the truth together.